And we're back. And we are back. Um, so what actually happens? Let me walk you through. So the defense says we want a referral. We are going to put forth a defense of insanity. And it is an affirmative defense. What that mean? That means that they got to prove it. Traditionally, when you charge a person with a crime, the prosecution has to be able to establish each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. They got to do everything. The defense don't have to do nothing. They can go to sleep. They have to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. But when you assert a defense, such as self-defense or insanity, and we're talking about insanity, this is an affirmative defense. That means that the defense has to put it forth, give notice, and they have to produce evidence that that person was in fact insane. If you don't have a defense, say person's charged with murder, they don't put forth self-defense or insanity. The prosecution has to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. They got to do everything. The defendant didn't have to do nothing. They don't have to take the stand. They don't have to make a statement. They don't have to do anything, and it can't be used against them. But when you allege defenses that will excuse that behavior, that will excuse a murder, then those are traditionally defenses that the defendant has to show some evidence that it existed. So what happens when you have an insanity defense? Well, as I indicated, they refer them to the forensic center, and they do tests, like they'll do these little tests to see if you telling the truth, if you lying. Okay, some little tests. And what it is, well, let me say this to you. They'll ask you things not for truth, but to determine if you understood different things. So it may be a test where they say they'll give you a fact pattern, and then they'll say, well, what is this? And based on this test, it showed this person was functioning low or high, etc., etc. So then they may ask them, well, what happened during that time? Well, during that time, I heard voices, etc., etc., etc. Then that doctor will make a determination of whether or not that person was insane at the time. The definition of insanity is that when one suffers a mental disease or defect as set forth under the mental health code, and that person lacks substantial capacity either to appreciate the nature and quality of the wrongfulness of his or her conduct, or to conform his or her conduct to the requirements of the law. What then happens is if I say, as a witness, as a doctor, he was insane at the time, and this is what I base it on, A, B, C, D, E. The other side, the prosecution say, oh, no. Our experts say that he wasn't insane, and we base it on G, E, F, G, H, I. Then the battle is on. Now, what some judges could do, they could say, well, we'll make a determination of this without the presence of the jury, if you all agree. Most times, those witnesses are presented at the trial so that the jury can make a determination of which expert they basically believe. Do I believe the expert for the prosecution? Do I believe the expert for the defendant? Now, if you are acquitted of the crime, say found guilty by reason of insanity, the court immediately commits that person to the Center for Forensic Psychiatry for up to 60 days, and the center will then examine and evaluate the mental condition of the individual. Okay. What I have found out is that in my limited experience, I think that let me retract that. I have never had a jury come back not guilty by reason of insanity. I have never had that happen. And I want to say I don't know, maybe 1,000, maybe a little bit more than 1,000 cases. I've never had somebody to come back and do that. Now, obviously, I don't know what happened, okay? But one thing I know that mental illness is real. I know that people say, oh, no, girl, just going to eat you some Cheerios. You okay? It's people, I'm like, huh? Oh, ain't nothing wrong with him. Ain't nothing wrong with him. He acting swole. Huh? He want attention. Ain't nothing wrong with him. He ain't hearing no voices. He like, what? We talked about this last week. 80% of people who are about 75% incarcerated have mental illness. Mental illness is real. Oh no, you just want to do that because kill people and stuff. Ain't nothing wrong with you. No, it's real. And what the problem for me, damn, as your parent, you didn't get mistreated. I know people who have parents, and they'll tell them in a minute, I don't like the way that medicine make me feel, and I'm not going to take it. As a result, they start doing things when they don't take that medicine. They go from 0 to 100 like that because the medicine will slow it down, but they don't like the way it makes them feel. If it's a disorder whereby you become very aggressive, the medicine will make you sleepy like this. But you're not high, but it makes you sleepy, it makes you tired. They don't like the way it makes them feel. It may make them drool at the mouth. It may impair their sexual ability. There may be many reasons. And I think the number one is just main thing is this. They don't want to be stigmatized. Nobody want to say that they got mental illness because, they're going to treat me different. But we don't treat people different if they got cancer. We don't treat people different if they got diabetes. But the minute that we find out that somebody has mental illness and that they need to take medicine, we start treating them different. And their battle was different than our battle. They're just trying to hold on and do things that we regularly do. So say, for instance, you may have a person that has a problem with impulse control. It's like no filter. Like if you thought somebody's saying something to you and you ever thought to say, I should just slap them in their mouth, but you don't, because you know you have a filter. Your mind, your brain goes through an analysis and say, you can't do this, it's not worth it, etc. Well, if you have mental illness, some forms of it, and you get the thought, you ought to slap her. Boom, they done slap somebody. Well, why they do that? They were just ugly and mean. No. Because maybe what it is, whatever's in their brain, is not acting as a filter. Listen, a couple weeks ago, my air condition, my heat went out. Oh my goodness. I said, well, why? The filter was dirty. And if the filter is dirty, the heater will shut down and it'll blow cold air because it's a mechanism so that the heater don't blow up. I had not changed that filter. Your mind has certain filters to say, this is appropriate, it's not appropriate. If those filters are not working, okay, and that's when we talked about whether or not the person has the substantial capacity to appreciate the nature and quality of his wrongfulness. If a person say, I love, listen, I love eating doo-doo or something unfortunate like that, or something inappropriate, they may not know that that's wrong. This is good. That's Snickers. That not do that. That's Snickers. So you ask them. I had this happen to me with a defendant, and it was horrible. And but he still wasn't found not guilty by reason of insanity. But my point being to you is, they're going to look at that. And let me tell you about these psychologists. If you playing with them, they're going to call you. They know. Because see, the interviews be like 4 and 5 hours. They'll ask you a question in hour 1, ask you the same question hour 3, and same question hour 5. If you lie about any of them questions in between, they know it. But they ask the same question in a different way. You ain't up on it. So they may ask you this question, do you like white bread? No. 3 hours later, they'll say, why don't you like white bread? Why is white bread good? And you say, because it tastes good. That's inconsistent. First, you said you didn't like white bread. 3 hours later, they say, what is the best quality of white bread? It tastes good. That's inconsistent. So what they're able to see is that there is a difference when somebody is, as Tracy says, trying to play them. So they twist up them questions. That's how they got them people on that PPP loan. They ask the same question 6 different ways in that. And if you answered it different anytime, guess what happened? They knew you was lying, and that was the fraud. That's why you got to be careful how you read stuff. Because if you read it too fast, that's why I knew with that PPP, slow down. Because they was trying to send people to prison. Okay? So you had to say, what did it mean? What did it mean? So, as Tracy said, they ask the same questions, but they do it in different ways. Now, remember I told you about, eating the feces? I had a client did all of that. They was like, oh, no. He's lying. Because they were able, not only in the questions that they asked them, but the video, audio, they were able to determine based on their years of experience that what they called it was finge, that they was lying, that the boy was lying, even though he was doing outrageous things, it still was a lie. And they were able to make that assessment. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks, Tracy. Stay on here with me. That's my girl. She a doctor. Boss, too. We'll be back.